Hey, this is Passy from Passy's World of ICT, the guy with the white hat. And today's lesson is going to be rock, paper, scissors. But it's going to be a lot different to any other rock, paper, scissors games you have seen. And we'll show you why right now. Okay, so in this fun lesson we build the player versus computer rock, paper, scissors game. We're going to use animated GIFs for the results. So this is your starting screen here, and then the player picks either rock, paper or scissors and clicks on that. And then what will happen is we will get the player won this time because the rock beats the scissors, okay? And we've got a flashing animated GIF for the results. But look, it gets even better than that, because we'll show you. This is the final exported version, so if you wanted to run this from a USB on any computer or any Windows device, all you need is the executable program for when it's finished, and the WAV files, the sound effect files, you also need those as well, copied into the same folder as the executable. All right, so here's the game, and hopefully you'll hear this when we play. So we're gonna go for rock and see what happens here. Oh, okay. Tie game, nothing happening there. Hopefully you can hear the sound through the speakers here. So let's try again. Yeah, a bit of funk music because we beat the computer. Yeah, okay. So let's play again. Nothing happening there. Nothing happening there. We've won again. Okay, we want the computer to win. Ah, there we go. So the computer's won and got some really dorky computer music happening. All right, that's enough of that. Enough of that. Enough of that. All right, so that's the idea of the game. We've got flashing animated GIFs, we've got sound effects, we've got everything. We've even got an exit button that asks you, are you sure you want to exit? And so we'll just say yes to that. Where we are. All right, so remember the PassyWorldOfICT.com VB Games. If you go to Passy's World of ICT, just Google for it and go to VB Games. That's where all of these programs are that you need to have done in our course, and there are some specific ones today that you really must have done before you attempt this one. So if you haven't done them, you'll have to go back and do them. So you need to know the VBNet talkie alarm clock and have done that lesson. The reason for that is because for those WAV sound effect files, we kind of introduced that in the talking alarm clock. The rolling 1 and 2 dice lessons, you'll need that for random numbers because we need the computer to randomly pick whether it's going to do rock, paper or scissors. And the Noughts and Crosses tic-tac-toe showed some good things, especially how to have a slab of code for one thing, take it into Microsoft Word and use replace all to make the next slab of code you need, and then just copy it back into VBNet. Some really important learning in these 3 lessons in particular. So it's very important you've done those. If you haven't done them, you're probably going to find this lesson hard going. All right, so the learning objectives, we've got a lot of stuff we're going to learn in this particular lesson, and it's going to set us up really well for the rest of the games course. So as usual, we're working out the algorithm for the game. So how does the game work? How can we translate that into computer talk? We write the pseudocode in plain English of what the computer needs to do, and then we'll also, this time I'm going to load all of our images into the program resources folder. So you noticed that we had all of our images just coming out of that exe file when we ran it from that folder. We just need to have the sound effect files in there. But we didn't need any image files because they're all compressed into the project. So we'll learn how to do that. And how we can modify the picture boxes and load up the images from the resources file, okay? We don't have to load them up from a folder on our computer or anything when the game's running. We're going to actually display the results not into a label but into a button, just because we can get a nice little border around it. That's the only reason for doing that, but we'll be doing that. We're going to use random numbers as to whether the computer picks rock, paper or scissors. Will be totally random. And the case statement is something new we're going to do. We're going to use that for processing part of our results and working out if there's been a win or not. As you saw, those great color flashing animated GIFs which we custom made with Photoshop, and I've got it right here. This is actually the rock out of our garden that we made the rock image from, and it kind of looks like a little computer mouse, kind of. So that's why we like that rock and used it. I don't know, very nerdy of us. We're going to reset the game back to its start status. So as you can see, we could click that play again button and the whole game would start over and we could have another game. And what we didn't show you was it was actually keeping track of wins, losses and ties in a little statistics box down the bottom right hand corner. We forgot to show you that, but that was actually happening, and we'll see that later in the lesson. And we're going to use a WAV sound for the those messages for when someone has a win, or the bop, 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 bop if it's a tie. So all of that stuff, it's going to be a really long lesson, and because we talk a bit slow, it's probably best to use that tools cog on the video player bar and just set it up to like 1.5x, maybe even 1.75x. Definitely faster because it is going to be a really long video. This could be the longest video we've ever made. So for people that aren't totally familiar with the game, hopefully most people know the game, but it's a hands game. So if you're working out who's going to go first at doing something, you can play rock, paper, scissors. So the idea is that you've just got your hands going, and then you go one, you shake your fist and you go 1, 2, 3, and you do scissors. And if the other person does rock, for example, the rock can smash your scissors, so the other person has won that one. So there's two people shaking their hands 3 times, then revealing a hand symbol, and different hand symbols beat each other, okay? And they're the hand symbols, and we just made that actually, taking pictures of our hand on the kitchen bench and then doing some photoshopping, which we'll talk about later. So the set of the rules of the games is as to which one triumphs and which one wins. Scissors will beat paper. So if this guy's doing scissors and this other guy's got paper over here, the scissors can cut up the paper. So the scissors is the winner. So this person on the left would win. Paper beats rock, which sounds weird. So if this guy's got paper and the other person does rock, the idea is that the paper can wrap around the rock. So if you had a rock, like this rock here, and you wrapped lots of sheets of paper around it, it wouldn't be hard anymore, and you could throw it at someone, and because of the paper, it would cushion it all, and it's not effective anymore. Not that we're saying throw stones at anyone, because I think they even talked about that in the Bible, wasn't it? Someone without sin casts the first stone. Oh, we don't want you throwing stones at people, but that's the idea. The paper can neutralize the rock, so paper beats the rock. Paper beats rock, and a rock beats scissors, because the idea is if someone's got rock and the other person's got scissors, the rock can just smash the scissors, okay? Bang, 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 and smash the scissors. So they're kind of the rules of the game. That's how the whole game works. And our challenge will be to take that real world game and turn it into computer language that can be processed. And we start by doing pseudocode. So here's just a little bit of the pseudocode, a preview of what we're going to do. So if the player choice has been rock, so if this person's chosen rock, let's say, this is how it's going to work. If the computer also chooses rock, well, we got 2 rocks, so nobody wins. So that's a tie game. Bop, 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 bop. If the computer chooses paper, remember paper can wrap around the rock and neutralize it, so the computer will actually win. But if the computer happened to pick scissors, the rock can smash the scissors, and so it's going to be the player that wins. Okay, so we need this sort of if, else if type structure, some plain English pseudocode, which we can then translate into VBNet code quite easily. Or if you were doing this game in JavaScript, you could then translate that into JavaScript code, or if you're doing it in Python, you could translate it into Python code. The main thing is to analyze the game, get it into this logic that's set up for computers, and then after that you can use any language you like, really, okay? So these skills we're teaching aren't just for VBNet, they're for any sort of application programming. So the first thing we usually start with is the form design, right? So this is what the form is going to look like, and notice we don't have anything in those 2 picture boxes at the start, so we'll just run you through it, what needs to be set up. So the ICO file here, we've just supplied one in the downloads, which is just the PASI ICO, but you could make another one. Go back to our lesson that was about making ICO files in the alarm clock lesson. If you don't know how to make them and you want to learn how to make your own, we've shown you that already in the course. This is why it's important you've done all the other lessons first. The form name, as usual, is just called Form 1. The back color we've set to black. That's roughly about how big it is. And the text up the top left-hand corner here says RPS Game, because in the text property, when we clicked on the form, we put in RPS Game. And here we've got a label, just a label here with some nice big 38-point size font. The font is Snap ITC, gives that nice little kind of font. And we're using dark turquoise actually as the color for this one. All right, then we've got a button here. This is an important button. You need to label it BTN player label, all right? So it's not actually an important button, it's just a label where we want to have player. Now the reason we're using a button and not a label is because see this nice little blue border all the way around? If you use a button symbol, you get that, but if you use a label, you can only have this option of a 3D label and you only get the lines on the bottom half and it just doesn't look good. So we're just doing it to look good. We spoke about this in the top 5 lesson a lot, so that's why you need to have done the previous lesson. So if you've done top 5, this will be fully understandable that we often use buttons for our labels just because they look a lot better. And if someone clicks on them anyway, nothing happens because we're not putting any program behind the button. So it's all fine to do that. And they're the sort of characteristics you need to set up for that. Then we've got our two picture boxes, one on the left, which is for the player, and that must be called Pick Player, spelt exactly like it is here. And this one needs to be called Pick Computer, spelt like it is here. We need those exact sizes. That size of 350 by 204 is extremely important. So make sure you set up the picture box that size so that the downloaded images you're going to get for this project work perfectly in the picture box. And stretch image for the size mode. That's got all that sorted. This is a group box. This might be something new. I'm not sure if you've used a group box before, but the idea is you drag out a group box, and in the text here you can put click your choice, and then you put the other things into the group box. So then we just get these three buttons, and you should know all about buttons by now, and you put them in the group box. Then you can click on the group box and move the whole group around. Okay, it all gets combined together inside the group box, and it just makes the layout neat and keeps things organized together. So that's all it is about using a group box. But it's important to put the group box down on the form first, and then to put the things that go inside it, make them onto the form and drag them inside the group box. Otherwise, if you do it in the other order, it's going to be tricky and cause you problems. Then we've got the Play Again button. So that must be called BTN Play Again. Make sure you call them these names, which are in bold here on this design. The exit button as well. We've got another group box here called Player Score, which we're just calling Gbox Score for its name. The text is just Player Score. Now, these labels here, you don't have to give them special names. They're just saying wins, losses, and ties. So you can get them in, and they're in that Alice Blue font, I think, the same. No, they're not in Alice Blue. They're in a font which we'll see shortly. And these ones, though, where we're going to have the how many have happened in the statistics, they do need to have special names. So they need to be LBL player wins for the number of wins, LBL ties for how many ties there's been, LBL player losses. So you need those three buttons there. And the fourth color is Cadet Blue. And I think this fourth color on these guys is Cadet Blue as well, just to match up with the numbers that are in there, okay? And we've got, I think, one more thing to do. And again, that's a button. And it's only a button to announce the result in here, just because we can get the nice border all the way around it, okay? That's the only reason why we've used the button. And again, notice we haven't put any text in. We're going to actually have the program write the text in at runtime so that we can have different text in there. Like if you watch the game running, it would have player wins. When the player wins, the text would be computer wins in the computer kind of pinkish color when the computer wins. And if there's a tie, it would just say tie game, no winner. And that was in yellow text, okay? So we can control everything that goes in that box from the program. So we're just putting a blank box. We're going to control what goes in the picture boxes from the program as well. So again, that's something new in this lesson. So pause the video here, and you need to get that all designed. You can make yours slightly different if you want to, different colors and different things. As long as it's got all those components on it, it's got statistics, it's got three different options. The player can click rock, paper, or scissors buttons, and you've got a couple of picture boxes for the images. All right, so welcome back. So now for the images, there's a set of animated GIFs and images for this game available in the downloads. So you really need to get the downloads for the game. It'll be a lot easier than trying to make your own images. So you'll get all of these images in the downloads. So you've got the animated GIFs, which you can't see animating here with the flashing colors, but they do when you play them. And here we've got just the plain ones in here, which we need for when there's a tie, because when there's a tie game, we just put the plain images in. We don't have them flashing at all because there's nothing to get excited about because nobody won the game. Now, I've also included in this lesson a bonus Photoshop lesson. Look, it's really important that you're able to make your own graphics and components for games, and we made all of these ourselves from rocks in our garden and using Photoshop. All right, so we've got a bonus Photoshop lesson that's going to show you how to make those colored animated GIFs. So if you've got your own rock, paper, scissors images, maybe you want to take photos of your own hands or something to do that, or get different things from the internet. There's a thing about how you can make them come out, those animated GIF flashing colors, and how you can make the animated GIF in Photoshop. So that's a bonus lesson. They'll be available as part of the downloads for this lesson. Now, we could make the game by stacking the picture boxes like we did in the dice game. So you need to have done the rolling dice game. I don't know if we mentioned that one at the start. Yes, we did, for random numbers and for this stacking. So remember in that game, what we did was we had all the different dice numbers in different picture boxes, and then we just stacked them all on top of each other and made them all invisible, okay? So they're sitting here in a stack, and then when they roll it, if the random number got picked as 2. We just showed revealed, changed the property of the stack of 6 dice. We just made the 2 dice the visible one, all right? And then when you roll again, they all just go invisible again. So you can stack and just make it visible. So we could stack, we could do it this way. We could take our paper, our scissors, and our rock and just stack them all on top of each other. So we've got 1, 2, 3 different picture boxes here, and we just put them all in a stack here underneath player, and then work out which one we need to make visible. Now that's kind of a bit of a beginner's approach. It does work well, and look, there's nothing really to stop you from doing it, but we're not going to do it that way in this game, okay? We're going to use a much more sophisticated professional way of doing it. So we're going to load them all into the VBNet project resource folder. So this is a new skill and something new, but this is going to be really useful for later lessons, because later lessons, as soon as we're dealing with images, we're probably just going to have them all loaded into that resources file within the project, okay? And it's a special bunch of VBNet steps you go through to do that. But once you've learned this lesson, bang, you're fine for all of the other lessons. So there'll be a lot of heavy duty learning in this lesson. And then what you can do is, to get something to show up in the picture box, all you have to do is say, okay, VBNet, go to that resources folder and just get me this picture and put it into the picture box, okay? So we can do it all with program code. And this is going to be very new and very useful learning, as we have said. Okay, so adding the images in the project resource file is a multi-step process, but that's going to mean that, like we showed you, that they're embedded in the project, so you didn't have to bother copying them. If you wanted to just give your project on a USB for your friend to use, all you need to copy across was the finished exe file and the 3 sound effect files. You didn't have to copy across any pictures because they're all inside the project in the resources folder as part of the exe, which is a really cool thing. Okay, so what you need to do is you get all those project images, you download them and put them in a folder, like we've just called ours downloaded RPS project images here. And so into that folder, we just got all of our downloads. There's 14 images there that you will get as part of this game, and you just put them all in a folder where you've given it a specific name. So that's step 1. That's just normal Windows folders work. We haven't done anything in VBNet. We don't even have to have VBNet running to do this first step, okay? Now, if you have made your VBNet project and you start drilling down or double clicking on the folders, you will actually find a folder called resources there that's empty. But unfortunately, it's not a matter of just taking the download resources, bang, copying them in there, and that's going to work, all right? It doesn't work that way. It's kind of like VBNet has to be mapped to them and know about them. It has to compress them up and kind of bring them into the project and keep them there forever. And so that's the way it has to work. You can't just kind of Windows copy them into a certain folder and that works. There's more steps than that, as you'll see. So the images have to be added into the actual project. So we started our new project because we've already made the form and everything and got that all set up. And so up the top, we go to project on these buttons that are right up the very top of Microsoft Visual Studio, and you go project. Then you have to go right down the bottom to this tool thing, to Paper, Scissors, Rock V1. That's our project, what we called it, but it might have your name there. Of whatever you called your project, and you click on that guy, the guy that's got the tool, the spanner, where's my mouse? The spanner right next to it here. And what that'll do is it'll open up this window. Now this window will be on application at the moment, but we don't want that. You need to click on resources. So resources is highlighted, and it'll just show this table as string 1. I don't know why that's in there, but anyway, we don't need to worry about that. Just as long as you've changed it from application to resources. Then there's a little arrow next to add resource, and you need to click that little down triangle arrow to open up the options for adding resources, okay? So that's what we do in step 3, and now we need to move on to step 4. All right, now step 3A. Sorry, we're actually doing step 3 now in detail. So step 3A, when you click on that down arrow, there's going to be all these options, and the common sense option that I picked when I first tried this for the first time was new image, because I wanted to just add a new image into the project, but that isn't right. You actually have to use add existing file. So make sure you don't click new image, which is very misleading. You have to click add existing file. Now, if you do accidentally click new image, even though we told you not to, but there's a lot on there and you could easily make that mistake. What happens is you'd say new image and you go, oh yeah, my file's a JPEG, so I'll just pick JPEG image. But it kind of takes you into like this Microsoft Paint thing where you actually draw and create your own brand new image. So you're building it with your bare hands, like casting, like, I don't know, chiseling out a rock for the pyramids from a giant piece of stone or something. That's not the way we want to do it. We just want to have these images that are already made. We don't want to make a new image. So that's why we use add existing file, okay? Don't go to new image or it'll expect you to draw one yourself. Now, once you click add existing file, this window here will open up, and it's just a standard Windows navigation folder, just like when you open a Word doc or a PowerPoint, you can navigate to where it is on your computer. So we've just gone to our first image here, the animated GIF for computer wins, and we just click that to select it so it's in light blue, click it once, and then click open, all right? And that's what you need to do there. So it's just using that little down triangle, add existing file, pick the one you want and say open, and then what will happen is that you will see in the resources, we now have that animated GIF in there. We've got our first of the 14 resources, images and animated GIFs that we need in that folder. All right, now you just repeat those same steps until you've got all the images. But look, here's a hint. You don't have to do it one by one 14 times. What you can do is you can click that add resource, add existing file, and then you can hold down Control and just go click, 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 click to highlight all of these and open them and add them all at once, okay? So you could add the remaining 13 ones all in one hit. I think we added 7 and then we added the other 6 or something like that. Did it in 2 goes. But yeah, use the Control key to go click, click, click and select several of them and add them all at once. Otherwise it'll take way too long to do and be a bit annoying and frustrating. So now that the resources, we've got them all in there, so they're not all shown here, but all 14 are actually in there. Now, how do you kind of finish up this process? There is no end button, there is no finish button, there is no save button. It's all a bit strange. They've kind of tried to copy Adobe here, where they've put the, or someone copied someone, because Adobe does the same thing. They've got an asterisk here, a little star symbol next to resources, and it's up here too. There's a little star symbol. And what you actually have to do is you just close this little X up here for the resources, and that will do the saving. It'll bring on the saving anyway. So what happens is when you click that little X up there, it's going to ask you, save the changes to your project resources, and the answer is yes. So you click on yes, and then all of those actual files you've added, added the existing file, added those images in, they'll actually get saved into the resources folder, and we're done for adding them in. Now we can check out if they're all in there okay. And how we can do that is, you've got a Solution Explorer for your project. That's the one when you reload an old project, you go down to Form 1VB at the bottom here and you double click on that to open up your form and do all that stuff. Well, there's one called Resources, the folder, and if you click that little triangle next to it, it should open it up to expand it. And you should see that all 14 images you need, all those download records are in there, the 6 animated GIFs and the other ones here, okay? So everything is in there, all the stuff you need, all 14 of them. So that's all good. Okay. And now what if your Solution Explorer isn't showing up in your project at the moment? Well, you need to just go View up the very top and do Solution Explorer so it's ticked, and then it will show up and you'll be able to go check that all of your resources are there in the folder. And while you've got that folder open in the Solution Explorer, if you hover your mouse over there and pause, what should happen is it should actually show you a preview image of what's there. Now for the GIFs, it won't show the animated one, it'll just show a still, but that's also if you've got these, if someone didn't name these very well, and they're just called image 1, image 2, image 3, you can mouse over them to see exactly which one is. All right, so sorry about that monster burp then. Maybe I'll have another drink of water and bring another one on. All right, the next bit, deleting images. So what if you made a little mistake along the way there? So we accidentally added this passy smiley face into our resources folder, and we decided, oh, actually we don't really need that one for our project. You have to delete it from 2 places, from the Solution Explorer and from the project resources. Okay, so what you do is on the Solution Explorer, where we opened up that folder, we could look at them all. There's the passy smile face. When we hover over it, it shows up. So what you do is you just right click on that passy smile face, and that'll bring open this little menu here. And the one we're using is delete. So you click on delete, and what will happen then is it'll give you a confirmation message. It's going to be deleted permanently, and you just say OK. And we've done step 1, deleting it from Solution Explorer. But there's still step 2. You need to actually reopen your project resources again. So remember, up the top of the screen, just go Project, then go down the very bottom to where that spanner icon is and open the resources. What'll happen now is Passy Smile, see how it's an empty box here because the picture's actually been deleted. But we actually need to delete the container that was built in the resources folder to hold that picture. So what you do is you right click on that empty box and you have to use remove there. Okay, so I want to remove that empty storage container which does not have an image in it anymore. And once we've done that, remember you have to click that X up the top on the resources to actually save the changes. All right, so that's how we back out and finish by clicking the X to save the changes. All right. So that was a very long process. It is the first time you do it, and it's easy to make a little mistake and have some issues. But the great news is that we'll be using that process again in future projects. So now you've learnt it. So we've got our form set up, we've got all our images loaded into the resources. We're actually ready to start doing some more building. So we're going to use the agile methodology as usual, where we do one bit at a time. So first we'll just get it displaying the game start kind of screen components, the right pictures and the starting message. We'll get that happening and we'll test it to make sure it's working, and that's kind of done. And only when that's tested and working do we proceed to the next step. The next step is making the 3 player buttons display rock, paper and scissors images when they're clicked. So I got those player buttons down the bottom left hand corner of our form, and we'll just make sure they put the images in there. Then we'll get the computer to make a choice, get it to do a random number 1, 2 or 3, where 1's going to be rock, 2's going to be paper and 3's going to be scissors. And then we'll get the next step, display that computer's choice in the computer's picture box. So then we'll have both the player's choice and the computer's random choice both displaying on the actual form so we can see what they've chosen. And then we need to create an algorithm to work out if there's a winner or if it's a tie game, okay? And then we translate that algorithm pseudocode into VB code. We're going to display the result on the screen using those nice flashing color animated GIFs that we showed you. And we're going to update and display those statistics in the bottom right hand corner. That's another win for the player, so give them another counter there that they've done another win. Add the required for processing for those 2 buttons, the exit button and the play again button. And the last thing we'll do is we'll add those WAV file sound effects into the game, all right, which make it really nice and interesting as well. So that's a mammoth amount of work actually, and that's as many steps as I think we've put on a screen in one of our game courses. So we need to have development stages. So because it's a very long lesson, this is really 4 lessons in one, and that's why you guys have been waiting so long for this next VBNet lesson to come out. But I thought, no, I won't break it into parts 1, 2, 3, and 4, because I've noticed on YouTube now, people are making really long videos, like, you know, learn Python in 3 hours, or learn JavaScript game development in 1 hour, or something like that. We could call this learn VBNet game development in 1 hour, or it might even take an hour and a half. It's already taken 30 minutes so far. So we suggest you break this down into 4 lessons to actually do it. So this one here is going to be stage 1. So once you've got the choices happening randomly for the computer and the player, though, they don't make a random choice, they deliberately click a button, and if they click rock, a rock picture comes up for them. Once you've got those 2 pictures showing, that's kind of stage 1 of the game, and that's where we've kind of replicated what happens in the real world. We've got a photo of what they both picked showing up there right in front of us. Okay, so you could stop at that lesson, and that could be lesson 1. You could just stop at that stage and then come back another day and do the other parts, because we'll have a timeline index on the video where you can come back to the exact spot where you finished up last time. Now the next part, creating that algorithm to determine the winner, that's actually quite an involved process, because there's a lot of decision making, a lot of if-else in it to get it developed and working properly. So you could do that as a whole lesson on its own. So that's the next lesson. That's kind of like part 2 or lesson 2. Then for lesson 3 or stage 3, work on the animated GIFs and getting the statistics updated about the wins, tries and losses. And then for lesson 4, which you could come back and do another day. So we could have spent 3 different days working on this, because I know we spent several days developing this lesson. And then stage 4 is where you finish it off and get those play again button working and add those really cool kind of fun sound effects in the game, and then you're done, all right? So it is really 4 lessons, okay? Think of this as 4 lessons because it's monstrous, but we're just gonna go through it and do it all in one hit and show you. And the effort of doing these 4 lessons is gonna set you up very well for future games, because future games we're gonna want some interest. We want some animated moving GIFs. We're going to want some sound effects in our games for sure. So we need to know how to use WAV files. We definitely want random events happening. So again, mastering random numbers is a really important thing. And working with algorithms, pseudocode, and logic is a critical part of all computer programming. So all of this stuff you're learning, these 4 lessons in one. Plus, we got the bonus Photoshop lesson where you can learn how to make your own colored flashing GIFs. So it's really 5 lessons in one. Whew, what a good value lesson this is. All right, so let's start working on item 1, which is the game start screen. So when the game first starts up, we wanted to show this 3-way picture. Hey, player, there's the 3 options for you. And computer, these are going to be your 3 options. And let them know it's the start of the game by in this central button here, which we're just using as a label to put messages in. Play now and win, okay? Just need a drink of water. So anyway, that's how we want it to look at the start. So there's 3 things we need to make happen, all right? So we need VBNet to get the right picture, which is RPS player JPEG from the downloads, and put it into that picture box. So that's new programming. It's very simple. It won't take long at all. And do the same sort of thing for the computer. The computer's ones have a pink border around them, which we made in Photoshop. Okay, so this isn't like some property you can click in VBNet, unfortunately. You have to make that yourself in the external application where you made the image. So anyway, get the computer, so on the start thing, computer, you're going to randomly pick one of these 3 as well. And this message here, play now and win. All right, so we just need to get 3 things happening on the screen, and we'll do that in the form load process that's going to be coded in our program, which we have done form 1 load processing before to set up initial things in programs. So if you double click anywhere in that black background area of the form, that opens up the form 1 load event. And in that form 1 load event, remember we wanted that blue frame picture for the player of their options loading up in the picture box. Now how you do that is you go pick player.image. So that's the name of the picture box, and we want the image in that. And this is how you get it to go into the resources file and find that picture. Notice that's the name of the picture. And it was actually a .jpg or a JPEG picture, but you do not put the .jpg on the end of it. All you need is this first bit, the actual name of the file. Okay, so we put RPS player JPEG. Now, there's also a thing that if you spell this wrong, make a little typo, or you haven't loaded up all your resources yet or something, there is a chance that picture can't be found. And so we need to cater for that. So we have, if the pick player image is nothing, so if something messed up in that and we didn't get our picture loaded in, we need to put out a message box on the screen that the RPS player image wasn't found in the program resources library. So you can check that out and add it in if it needs adding in, or go back and check this spelling for the name of the picture, because maybe that was spelt wrong and that's why it didn't go in. So we need to do that. We need to do the same thing for the computer. So in the pick computer, its picture box on the right hand side of the form, .image, you just set up this code, my resources manager, get the object that's called RPS computer JPEG, right? You don't put the .jpg, just the name of the thing in quotes. If it's not there, if it doesn't go in, something goes wrong, just put out a different sort of message about it being a problem with the computer image. And to get that middle one set up where we have it say play now and win, you just need to set up. Now this is interesting. With a button here, you can actually change its properties in code. We've been used to going into the actual form and having that up and going down through that big long properties list on the right hand side and clicking different things, but you can actually do it in your program. So this BTM win or a tie message, that's the name of that button. We just want the for color to be color.dark turquoise, okay, and that gives that kind of nice green blue color for the writing there, that aqua blue. The flat style for that button is standard. That gives you a single kind of grey line around the full outside of it, which is what we want to make it stand out. And we want this content to be aligned in the middle, not to be over the left-hand side, not to be over the right-hand side. So content alignment is dot middle center. And to get it to go into 2 lines, to play now, and then start a new line and say and win. To start a new line, it's called a carriage return line feed. So you actually code in that we want to say play now, then we want to add in a VBCRLF, official basic carriage return line feed, which just means make sure you go to the next line and then say and win. All right, so this and adding on or saying yes, we want the line feed, the new line happening as well before we put in the and win. Okay, so that's an important little skill as well, just being able to split something out on 2 lines by putting in ampersand or an and VBCRLF in between your 2 items. So get that all coded and check it out and run it, and that should run and be showing things on your form rather than having these items blank. Okay, so pause the video now to do that. All right, now just above where we've just done all that work, and straight under the very first line of your program with public class form 1 that's already there, you need to set up these variables, okay? So we're gonna need some public global variables. This is something a bit tricky, which we'll talk about more in later lessons, but the idea is you have local and global variables. So if you look at the little screen where I am in the corner, see this pen, right? If that pen's in my pocket, that's like when you dimension a variable inside a certain subroutine. So this pocket's a subroutine. Only that subroutine can use the variable. But if I take this pen out and put it down on the table so any person can come along and borrow it and use it, then it's a global variable and any subroutine can use it. So rather than dims, we're using publics up here. We're not using the dim statement. So we need something that's str player choice, okay? What the computer choice is, what the player choice is. At the moment, it's gonna be no choice yet, but later on, if the player had clicked rock button, we're gonna change that to str player choice equals rock so we can track who's chosen what. That way when we're doing the checking for a tie game, we can look, if player choice is rock and computer choice is rock, we know they've picked the same thing, so we know to put up the tie game message and stuff. We need to know who's winning the game and who hasn't won, so player wins and computer wins, so at the moment we set them to false. And we're setting up variables to count how many wins and losses we've had, because later on we'll have the try again button, play again button, so they can rack up a bunch of wins and losses, and we want a little stats box in the bottom right hand corner for that. So we're just setting up some variables for that. So you need to put type all list code here very carefully in your program. It's directly above the form 1 load and it's directly underneath public class form 1 and it is indented 1, 2, 3, 4 characters, okay? So pause the video and get all of that typed in. Yeah, so sorry, that's how the stats look. Down the bottom right hand corner, you got this number of wins, losses and ties, and this is where we're going to count them and keep track of them inside the program. All right, when we green arrow run the program at this stage of what we've done, our start screen is working. Yay, we've got the 2, here you go, player pick something and computer's going to randomly pick something, play now and win. So we've got all those 3 things happening on our screen the way we wanted to, so that's all working. So, we've done the first thing. Display the game screen start components. So you can tick that one off and we move on to the next one. So the next one is there's those 3 player buttons. So we want them to display the rock, paper and scissors pictures when the person clicks onto one of those buttons, make it put the right picture in there. So that's what we're going to work on next. So this is the agile methodology. We just sort of break the whole thing down into little small manageable steps because it's way too overwhelming to just try and start building the whole thing all at once. Like imagine if you were building a house and you had everyone rock up at once. You had the painters, the tilers, the guys for the windows, the floorboard polishing guy, the bricklaying guy, the driveway and landscaping guy. They can't all start work at once on the house, right? It has to be in stages. Like the concrete guys have to come first and do the foundations and that before anything else. So any project has to be broken down. That's what we're doing here. So we're just getting the game screen start thing done. Now we're going to be able to make the player click a button and get a picture showing. So this is agile. You do a bit, check out it's all right, then you move on to doing the next bit. That's agile, and everything's done with agile. So that's the one we need to be learning here. Not just for VBNet, but for any programming application development in any language, or even if you're building a house or an assembly line is building a car or something in Japan, it's all the same. It's all agile. A bit gets done, test and make sure it's all right, then you do the next bit. Okay, so here's our screen. So the idea is when they click on rock, what's going to happen is that we need the programming code to go and get the rock images out of the resources folder and display the rock image for us. So instead of having that 3 hand symbols there, it's just going to show, yep, they clicked rock, so we're displaying a rock for them. All right, so that's what we're trying to do on the screen here. This is the agile build step we're doing at the moment. So double click on that rock button on the form, and that'll take this click event. That'll make this bit for you. Private sub, when the rock button's clicked, and the end sub. All right, so it makes the start and the end, and you've just got to put all the stuff in between, and this is what you type in. You type in pickplayer.image is go to the resource manager and get the one that's called rock player JPEG. That's the picture of the rock that's got a blue frame around it for the player. And you put that in. Make sure the size mode is stretch image. If something went wrong and it didn't load up, make sure an error message gets put out in a little message box on the screen. And also, we don't want them now to pick anything else because they only get one choice, rock, paper, or scissors, the player. So we disable the other 2 buttons. So if you watch the top 5 lesson, this should be all very straightforward to you. btn paper.enable false, btn scissors.enable false. So they can't click any of those other buttons, all right? So that's it. They've picked their rock and the picture displaying for their rock. Now you have to do the exact same coding for paper and scissors buttons. So you need to double click on the paper button and it'll build a private sub btn paper click and an end sub, and then you'll have to put code in between. And if you remember back to the noughts and crosses lesson, remember how you could take this code and copy it into Microsoft Word, and then you could just do replace everything that says rock here with paper, and then you could just put this code straight in for the paper button code. All right, so you should be a fast track way of developing this using Microsoft Word and replace all and copy back like we did in the noughts and crosses. So hopefully you've got that skill. Now we're going to test that they're all working okay. So when they click the rock button, it shows a rock, and also the paper and scissors buttons, you'll find that you can't click on any of them and do anything, okay? So that's it. That's all working for if they click rock. What about the code we copied and pasted and changed into paper code? When they click paper, what you should find is that it puts a picture of paper there for them with the blue frame around it, so we know it's a player's picture, and the rock and scissors buttons are disabled. So they can't change their mind and go, oh no, I'll pick rock instead, and they click rock and it's going to show a rock picture. That won't happen. They're getting paper because that's what they clicked, and they only get one chance to click one thing. And if they click scissors, they're going to get the scissors picture. Rock and paper are disabled, so they can't change their choice and change over to paper or rock. Scissors is what they clicked, and scissors is what they're stuck with. So that's all of that working. So get all that stuff coded, make sure that's working, and then I think we've finished this second step we have. So let's just have a little round of applause there. Yay! So the player has made their choice and it's displayed on the screen, and they can't click any other buttons or change their mind about it. Now we need to get the computer to make its choice, but it's not a person with eyes and a brain that can look at buttons or anything. It has to do it by a random number. So it's going to make up its own little random number between 1 and 3. And if it's 1, it's going to be a rock. If it's 2, it's going to be a paper. And if their number they happen to make up was a 3, it's going to be scissors. All right, so let's get into making this third step here. Just some revision, if you can't remember or you've forgotten about the rolling dice project, this is what we did to make dice numbers between 1 and 6. We just had randomized, so it initialized itself and plants a random seed. Don't worry about it, you just need randomized brackets. And then you needed this code here. We needed 6 in there was the magic number to get a number between 1 and 6. So to get a number between 1 and 3, what do you think we need to do? We'll just need to change that 6 there to a 3, and that should give us a magic number between 1 and 3, a randomly picked number. Coming from the skies, from the computer's internal processing. And then we'll just say that, okay, if it's a 1, it's a rock, 2, it's paper, 3, it's a scissors. Then we'll be able to set, remember how we set those public variables up the top of the program? We'll be able to say, yep, the string computer choice is a rock. Or maybe if it was random number 3, it's scissors, so you can put their choice into that variable, all right? So let's look in detail how you go about coding that. So at the bottom of the current code, we're gonna add a brand new subroutine. This isn't one where you double click and it gets made automatically for us. We have to make this one ourselves. and it's going to be called make random computer choice. So you need to type in public sub, make random computer choice brackets, and you'll have to type in an end sub, and then in between here, we're going to have all our code. So we just got some comments there, so you should have these single quote comments so other people reading your code can tell what it's doing. So we do the seeding, the randomize, and remember we just changed that 6 that we used in the dice program to a 3, and that way we'll get numbers between 1 and 3 instead of getting numbers between 1 and 6. If that int random number choice happened to be a 1, we're going to say that str computer choice is a rock. If the number's 2, the computer choice is paper. If the number's 3, the computer choice is scissors. Otherwise, something's gone wrong. So as well as these 3 things happening, if something goes wrong in here, like maybe you actually typed a 5 here, so it's actually doing numbers between 1 and 5 and it picked a 5, then it won't get picked up as any of these. So then it would come up as an error here, error in computer choice random number. So you know something was wrong and you need to go and check it in your program. So you should always do the things you're looking for with if, else if, otherwise it could be this, and always have a final one that if it's not any of those ones you're expecting, make sure you put out a little message box giving an error so that can be looked into, because that's important. Now we're going to temporarily display what choice the computer made. All right, so we're going to have a message box that just says computer choice equals, and we're going to add on to that whatever the string computer choice value is. So by putting the variable name, if the computer had chosen rock and rock has been set into string computer choice, it's going to show computer choice equals rock. Okay, we'll see that later on when we test it. But that's some temporary display code we're going to have in there. Later on, we'll make the fancy animated GIFs. The fancy, what do we make later on? Oh, we'll have fancy, we'll make the GIF go in there instead of the message, all right? We'll have the picture of the actual rock or whatever go into the computer's side of the screen there. But at the moment, we're just testing this random number generating works. So we're just going to actually put a little message box saying what random number got generated and what the computer has picked. Now, we've made that brand new little subroutine sitting there down on the bottom, all lonely at the bottom of the program. We need to call it now to make it get executed or make it get done. So where we've got that stuff, where we made code for when they click the rock, paper, or scissors button, the player, and remember the last thing we were doing in that code when we typed it in just before was making these enable buttons false so they couldn't change their choice. You need to add this code at the bottom. So before the end sub for like the BTN click rock, you're going to have it go make random computer choice. So I'll go down there and I'll do the random computer choice, okay, because the player choice was finished. So you need to go to your paper button, click event subroutine, and down the very bottom after where you have these enable falses and before the end sub, just add these 2 lines of code in here so that if the players pick paper, it'll now go off and let the computer pick something randomly, and also do that on the scissors button click subroutine you've got in your program. So find that subroutine, go down the bottom of it just before the end sub, put those 2 lines in. So the player has picked the scissors, and now we can get the computer to go off and do a random number and it'll come up with its pick, all right? So when we test that, what happens is the players obviously click the rock button there because they got a rock picture put in, and we get a little message here that the computer, well, it's actually chosen rock as well. So that's interesting. It's going to be a tie game. Run it again, the computer chose scissors. Run it again, the computer chose rock. Run again, the computer chose paper. So the random numbers seems to be working. The computer's choosing different things each time we run the program. And we'll also try with the player clicking scissors and see what happens. We'll have the player click paper, so they get their paper and see what happens. So when the player clicked scissors, they got a scissors picture, and it says the computer choice has chosen rock there. Okay, and that computer rock will smash those scissors. Here the players pick scissors, but the computer has chosen paper, so the scissors are going to cut up the paper and win. And here the player was picking paper, and the computer's random thing was paper as well. Okay, so it seems like the random selections are working. We can get the player to pick something and their picture comes up, and we're getting messages that the computer is randomly picking something. It's not always picking rock all the time or only picking rock and scissors. It's picking any 3 of the things, and it just seems totally random as to what it happens to pick, which is exactly what we want. So the random number computer choosing is working, so we can tick that off as done. So I got 3 things done, which leaves us one more thing to do to finish lesson 1, to finish stage 1 of building the program, which is 48 minutes into the video. Oh my God, I think it's going to be a 2-hour video, and I think that I'll be praying to God to help me get through it, because I don't have enough water. I should have got like 3 glasses of water for 4 lessons. Anyway, let's get into it and get this stage 1 finished. So the computer choice image, the computer has made their choice and it's getting displayed to us. So where we've got that temporary display message, okay, so we're going back to that make random computer choice, the new subroutine we typed in ourselves right down the very bottom of the program. We're going back to that and making changes. So where it's got that temporary display message to see what the computer chose, just delete those 2 lines because we're not going to use them anymore. Instead of that, we're going to have, if the computer choice is rock, okay, we're going to actually put the rock computer picture with the pink board around it into the pick computer picture box on the form and set it to stretch to fit in that box. If something goes wrong, we're going to give a message, okay? So we're going to have this if, end if, and all this stuff inside it, indented by these amounts. So you need to type this in. So where we had that message about the computer choice, just delete that out, and we have this one, if the chose rock, do the rock thing. Okay, so add that code to the very bottom of that subroutine, and be right down to the very bottom of our program. And we need to create the exact same type of code here for paper and scissors. So once this code's okay, you take this code, the if and end if, just copy that whole slab there into Word, just to replace everything that's rock, replace it as paper, and then copy it back. That's got your paper stuff, and then take it across again into Word. Change all your rocks into scissors, then you got your scissors stuff, copy it back into VBNet. You need to have watched the Noughts and Crosses game where we did a lot of this copy into Microsoft Word. That'll save you a lot of time. Or you can just hand type it all again, or copy and paste it somehow. But anyway, you need rock, paper, and scissors, all the same code structure, just one's going to be rock, one's going to be paper, one's going to be scissors. And then we need to test that out. So here we're doing tests where the player was picking rock all the time, and you can see we were getting the computer images and it was picking different things, different times we ran the program. Actually, you just be in the one program and you keep clicking on rock and it keeps doing rocks, and the computer keeps making different selections. Well, sometimes it can make the same selection in a row. It's okay to get rock and then get rock again. That can happen. That's within the laws of picking a number between 1 and 3, the realms of probability. That is fine. Here we're just doing clicks where they would just click in the paper button several times, and the computer was generating its choice just totally randomly with that random number picker. And here the player was just clicking on scissors all the time to get scissors, and the computer was coming up with different items that it was getting. So that all seems really great, and we have finished that almost. All right. So we were kind of cheating, and we kept clicking rock over and over to do our testing, which was okay. That helped us out do the testing quicker, but that's not how the game would really work. What happens is the player picks rock, and like if someone's playing the game for real, they don't go, oh, I'm picking rock, I'm picking rock, I'm picking rock, I'm picking rock. They pick rock and then they're stuck on rock. Okay, so we really want to disable the rock button there after they've clicked it, so they can't just keep clicking it. All right, so we need to modify each of those 3 button subroutines. We're only disabling 2 buttons at the moment. We need to disable all 3. So where we've got here to just disable the rock and scissors button. So if you go into the button click subroutines, one of the lines of code in there was disabling the other 2 buttons, turning them to false. Well, that was wrong. We actually need to modify the code and make sure all 3 buttons get enabled false, all right? So don't just have 2 of them enabled false. Make sure you get all 3 different buttons enabled false, okay? That way they can only click rock, paper, or scissors once, and then all of them are disabled and they can't waste their time clicking again, okay? Because you could actually cheat. Like if you clicked and the computer beat you, just click again and the computer might choose something else and you could beat the computer quickly, all right? So that's not good. We just want them all 3 disabled, set to enabled equals false. And whoa, that's stage 1 of development complete. Now that's been a 53-minute lesson. So that's probably enough for you to take in for one day or one lesson. So you can just stop the video now, because in the timeline index, you can come back and see where we start stage 2, creating the algorithm. And that's going to be another long part of the video as well. This is like one of those learn Python in 3 hours videos. You're going to learn everything you need to know about VBNet game programming all in one monster lesson, which is, we think, is way too much. So we're saying break it down to 4 lessons. You've just finished lesson 1. Congratulations. All right, and we'll have to try and do the other lessons quickly. Okay, welcome back to lesson 2. We're going to do stage 2 of the lesson, starting with creating the algorithm. And I think this is all of lesson 2 because this takes so long to do with so many steps, but it's going to give you good learning and skills for when you have to do this for another game. So as usual, we need to work out the design, can be really clear on how the game's working. So as we said, people choose different things. We've got this kind of set of winners rules here about what beats what. So that's all good. And we need to break that down into plain English pseudocode. So let's start having a look. What if the player picks rock? What are all the different things that can happen? How can we write that in plain English pseudocode? So player choice is rock, all right? We've got the computer randomly choosing things. If the computer choice is rock, well then both of the guys have got rock, so nobody wins. So it's a tie game, nobody wins, all right? Now, if it wasn't that, maybe it was something else. So maybe it was something else where the computer choice was paper. So how's it going to match up if players got rock and computers got paper? Remember, paper can go over the rock and paper beats rock. So the computer wins, and we get that funny computer music later on. Although maybe something else happened. Maybe the player chose rock, but the computer randomly chose scissors, which is bad for the computer because the rock can smash the scissors and break them to pieces, and so the player's going to win. Otherwise, maybe something's wrong with our program. We haven't got a computer choice at all, so we need to put out a little error message there. All right, so that's kind of looking, just having a little look. What if player's chosen rock? Okay, the next button the player can pick is paper. So what are all the things that can happen? Let's try and write them out in this could happen, or maybe something else could happen, or maybe something else could happen type pseudocode logic, which is how computers need to be instructed to do things. So the player choice is paper, while the computer can choose rock, paper, or scissors. And depending on whether they choose rock, paper, or scissors, we look at our little rule book up here and we work out whether it's a tie game or somebody wins. And we do the same thing for scissors as well. If the players happen to choose scissors, that's the third thing it could have chosen possibly. Computer can choose rock, paper, or scissors randomly. Whatever one it chooses, different things will happen. So we make a list of them and put it in this if, else, if type structure. Okay, so that's all of our kind of real world algorithm of how it works converted. So we've done that kind of little great little image from Wikipedia there. We've done all of that into computer type code, which can now be programmed into a computer in any language. Okay, that can be translated into anything. That's just the logic, the pseudocode. So we're going to start this new structure off using a case statement. So whether the player has chosen rock, paper, or scissors, we're going to use a case statement for that. So we've got a case. What case is the player choice? What has the player chosen? What's the situation? What's the case for that? Well, if it's chosen rock, then we'll need to do detailed checking to see how rock versus computer matches up against each other. Case of player choice, maybe the player chose paper, so we need a separate little subroutine to check that out, what can happen. What if the player's chosen scissors? What are all the things that can happen? We'll have a little subroutine to do that. And if the player isn't coming up as chosen rock, paper, or scissors, well, something's wrong, so we need to give an error message. Then we have an end case there. So that's how you write the pseudocode for a case statement. So it's kind of a more compact, shorter, easier version than an if, else, if statement. Case is a lot easier to handle. And so if it's rock, then we need to have some processing for when the player chooses rock. These are all the things that can happen. Now, you could write this as a case as well. You could have that in a case structure. We're just using the good old else, if else there, because that's the way you wrote it in the pseudocode. But some people might be thinking, well, use case here for player. Why can't you use case here for computer? Well, the truth is you can, but we're just doing it this way, all right? Now, if the player chose paper, well, then we need to check out all the things that could happen depending on what the computer has randomly chosen. If the player's chosen scissors, we'll need another little subroutine for when the player chooses scissors. And if none of that's happened, if the player doesn't have rock, paper, or scissors, something's wrong, so we need to give a message box. Okay, so that's kind of how our program's going to run. That's the pseudocode. And now we need to look at putting that into VBNet, which is the language we're using. But if you're doing this game in Python, you could look at putting all that logic there into Python, and that could easily be done. All right, let's begin with the case statement. So we're just going to look at coding this in VBNet. Now, how do you make this case player choice stuff work? Well, you have a public subroutine, check for winner. That's a new subroutine we're writing. So go down the bottom of your program, put in public sub check for winner brackets and no spaces in between, and put an end sub. And then in between here, we say select case, str player choice. That was where we were storing what the player had chosen. The case is if that thing's a rock, we need to go off and do this subroutine. If it's paper, we need to do this subroutine. These are all new subroutines, and VBNet will actually put a red squiggle under them and indicate an error because we actually haven't put in the code for these new subroutines yet that we're making up. So we're just giving them names and stuff and putting them in here, but don't worry about that. We're going to make them up and that'll get rid of all the errors. So that's how you actually structure the case statement. So you need to type that right down the bottom of the program, public sub check for winner brackets, put your case statement in and do that. And then we need to do all these little detailed checking subroutines. So the one for player choice rock, where we had this box of pseudocode, that's how it's going to translate into VBNet. And then you need to do the exact same structure and logic for paper and for scissors, and use this pseudocode here to help you, all right? And remember, you can always copy that into Word. That's the rock stuff. Do a replace all in Microsoft Word to change everything to paper and put, or can you? No, maybe you can't, because you actually have to look at the rules logic here and use your pseudocode. So maybe you can't do global replace here. You might have to actually think about these and code them yourself and not use Microsoft Word replace all. But basically you need to get all that written. You need to have a subroutine called check rock versus computer selection. You need to make another subroutine, check paper versus computer selection, put this in, this coding here, but turn it into VBNet code. Have another subroutine right down the bottom of your program, public sub, that name, end sub, and in this space here, you're putting all that pseudocode translated into VBNet. So that'll take you a while, so pause the video and do that. Now, if you're getting lost in all of this and your program isn't working, just remember in the downloads, there is the step-by-step detailed instructions, okay? The Word document, okay? Now that'll have all the code in it, so these bits we're telling you to write yourself. There will be some code listings in the downloads document, which your teacher may have. Maybe they've got the downloads and didn't give that bit to you to make you work it out and force you to actually learn something, which is a good thing. Yeah, so just get the downloads if none of this is working for the video, but we need to move along. Now, if you run the program now with those new 4 subroutines in there, nothing happens. Because remember, we need to actually call that new subroutine, which we've written into the program down the bottom, but we need to actually call that main checker back from in our button click. Because remember, we made the thing to randomly generate computer choice, and then we had to go back to our button click code and say, hey, go off and do the computer choice. So straight under that, we need to now tell it, like this is, say, the click rock button thing, and that's the code for it. If we go down the bottom of that subroutine, we're going to have a check for winners. So tell it to go off and do that check for winners subroutine. And we need to put that down the bottom of BTN rock click, BTN paper click, and BTN scissors click subroutines. So we're back to our player button click subroutines again, which are kind of up near the middle part of our program. And we're adding some more stuff in the bottom, telling it to go off and check for winner. So you need to put that in. That should be quick and easy. When we run it though, something really weird happens. Like click on rock, and it just gives you this error. Player has not selected rock, paper, scissors. Well, we did. We clicked on rock. And if you click on paper, you can see the player paper image loads fine, and the computer's made a choice and happened to pick paper as well. But we get this error popping up. The player has not selected rock, paper, or scissors. But we did. We clicked paper. Dodo bird. That's how we got the paper showing in there. So what has gone wrong? What have we done? Well, remember there's that str player choice where we're supposed to store whether the player has chosen rock by clicking on it, or whether they've chosen paper, or whether they've chosen scissors. We've actually never put coding into our project. We don't actually have any coding in our program which sets the value of str player choice. Okay, so that's where we've missed something. But again, by having that else with the other situation, what if when you're trying to analyze and check for a check the processing there, check for a win, what is going to happen if we haven't got anything to check against, all right? So that's kind of a good thing. And let's move on here. So what we need, each of those buttons, so here's the BTN rock one. Now, rather than add it down the very bottom of the subroutine, these ones will add up the top. So as soon as someone's clicked the rock button, let's set that the player chose, str player choice equals rock, okay? And then we'll worry about displaying the images and doing all that stuff, putting the rock picture in. So again, on BTN paperclick, just go up the top of the subroutine, make a new line, some room, and put str player choice as paper. And up the very top of the BTN scissors click subroutine, which is in your program already, just put str player choice is obviously scissors if they've happened to click the scissors button. All right, so that was the code fix we needed. And when we do the testing now to check for a winner, hey, it's starting to work. So player clicked rock, and the computer randomly chose scissors, not good, because the rock can smash the scissors, so player wins, rock beats scissors. All right, another one here. They both happen to have chosen rock. Well, it's a tie game with no winner, so that's all working. Again, a double pick. Both chose paper. It's a tie game, no winner. This one here, the player wins, because remember, paper can wrap around a rock and beat a rock. Here it's another tie game where they've both chosen scissors. Here, the player's going to win because the scissors can go across and chop up all that paper and destroy it. Cut the paper to shreds. So the player has won that most convincingly. All right, so that all seems to be working. The check for winner with message boxes all seems to be working. And I think that's actually the end of this stage, stage 2. Now, a lot of videos you watch on the internet, this is all I'd show you for rock, paper, and scissors, that we have the pictures appear, the computer's randomly generating or choosing its picture or its choice, and then we have a message box about who the winner is. Yay, we've written rock, paper, scissors. And yeah, look, that's okay, but we want to get really fancy here and go professional, and we're doing it really in 4 lessons, but we're cramming it all into 1 lesson. We want to have flashing GIFs, we want to have WAV noises and music playing and all sorts of fancy things. So we're going to keep going further. So that is the end of stage 2 of development. So look, that would have taken you a while to code and test. So maybe just take a break here and don't bother doing any more on this today, and you can come back another day in the video timeline and finish it off. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to display the result on the screen. We're going to start getting those flashing color animated GIFs happening on the screen rather than that boring kind of just message box saying who's won. Got to conserve water here. I think this could be a 2-hour video. Oh my goodness. Learn everything about VBNet programming in 2 hours. All right, so the message box displaying the game result, like I said, that's very amateur. We want to make something more fancy. So remember, we've got those animated GIFs from the downloads folders here. So if the player wins with a rock, we can flash colored rock stuff there and make it more exciting that the player's actually won. Sorry, that's the computer one because it's got a pink frame around it. The blue one is for when the player wins. So I've got these animated flashing color GIFs, which are part of the download. So make sure you get the downloads for this lesson. And as an extra bonus, if you want to make your own one, we've given you that Photoshop PDF with step-by-step instruction. So you can have any picture you want. And by using Photoshop, you can make different colored versions of it. And then you can put all the colored versions together into a little movie that plays over and over. And that's basically what makes an animated GIF. And you can make it yourself. Or you can just go to Giphy or all those things on the internet and just get a GIF for free. Okay, you can do it that way, that's all right. But, you know, we're developers, we want to make our own stuff. And the thing is, if you're making your own game too, you want to have your own things that you've made, because otherwise you've got to pay royalties and buy stock images and do all this sort of stuff, or risk copyright violation, and then you're in trouble legally, and that's a really bad road you don't want to go down. So it's great if you can make your own sort of graphic resources for projects, all right? That'll be another skill which will be great for games programming and for application programming. So the first thing we want to do is, where we've got all that stuff, check for rock versus computer selection. Where we had all those little checker subroutines, we had 3 of them, I think, which we just wrote recently. Just comment out where it was that message box. So put a single quote in front and that'll go all green. It won't get message boxed anymore. Now, why aren't we just deleting those lines of code in red? Well, we're just keeping there because maybe our animated GIF, something goes wrong and it's not working properly. We could turn back on the message boxes and see, okay, well, let's work out that it was a tie game, so we shouldn't be seeing anything flashing. We should just be seeing normal pictures. And let's check that out by using the message boxes to see what's happening. So we could always comment them back later in to help us work out if there's problems. So we're just doing it that way rather than deleting them. And we often do that in programs and leave what are called these stub display messages in there to help us debug a program. Now, debugging is fixing problems in a program. The first big computer they ever built broke down and wouldn't run its program at one stage. And they spent days trying to work out what was wrong, and there's nothing wrong with the code. And when they pulled the back off the thing, bugs had actually crawled in and short-circuited the wires inside the computer, and they had to get the bugs out and resolder the wires, and then it worked. So they call fixing problems debugging. You've got to get little bugs that have crawled into your computer out of there or something. So since then it's been called debugging, crazy sort of thing. Now make sure you comment out those message boxes in the other 2 subroutines. So you're going to go into check rock versus computer, check paper versus computer and check scissors versus computer and just put a single quote in front of them. They should turn green and they're all commented out and that's all good because we want animated GIFs there instead. So we need to look at what are all of the possible game results because we've been checking for winners and doing them all. So there's the player. The player can win 3 different ways. They can pick rock and they can have a win because the computer happened to choose scissors. The player can pick paper, and if the computer actually selects rock, that's no good for the computer. Player can choose scissors and it can win if the computer has happened to pick paper, because the scissors can snip up the paper into little bits. So that's the way this kind of player can win. That's one set of circumstances. For the computer to win, we have to have these, one of these 3 things happen. And if it's going to be a tie game, well then, if both of them choose rock, that's a tie game. If they both happen to choose paper, that's a tie game. If they both happen to choose scissors, that's a tie game. So there's 9 different things that could happen here. So you could actually write your code as a if, else, if, else, if, else, else, if, else, if, else, if, and do these 9 things, check and that'd be your program. And some things you write, watch on the internet videos will do it that way, and you'll be going, oh Pessy, why don't we just do it that way? It's quick, we just write one subroutine, blah blah, it's done. You may just do the case statement and go off to all these other subroutines and things. Well, you know, this is just kind of learning how to break down a problem into really small manageable tasks that we can easily do. If you're up for doing bigger tasks, yeah, we'll just combine those little subtasks into one big massive subroutine. If you can understand what's in it and write some comments so other people can as well, that's all good. Now we'll code all of these 9 outcomes into a new subroutine at the very bottom of the program. So we're making a new subroutine, display the game result. Okay, so we've checked for winners, we know what the result is. Now we just want to make sure the right animated GIF gets displayed. Or if it's a tie game, we don't want to display animated GIFs. It's boring. We just want the normal boring pictures there that don't flash colors. All right, so let's have a look at how we do this for the first one. If the player chooses rock and the computer loses, so there's our new subroutine, writing public sub. So type that in, put an end sub down the bottom. Then you need all this code. It's just going to check if the player's gone for rock. It happens that they won and the computer lost. So we check these 2 Boolean variables here, BLN ones. Well, then we're ready to change our colors for that middle message box and put in that the player wins. All right, so this code in here will set that up, that player wins. All right, and that'll get put in there. And we want to have the flashing colored rock image because the player chose rock and that was the winning thing. So we want that all to flash nice colors and stuff. And then we want to exit the subroutine because we don't need to do any more checking because, ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner, okay? So that's the first end if, and we're going to have to write 8 more end ifs like this, if end ifs. So we're going to have 8 more, no, yeah, 8 more because there's 9 altogether, remember? We just listed them out. There are 3 for the player winning, 3 for the computer winning, 3 for ties. So this is one of 9 that we need to write. So there's 8 more to go. All right, so the next 2 you can do yourself, and this is a copy paste in Microsoft Word. Just change rock into paper, copy it back in. That'll give you the one you need for the player winning with paper, the player winning with scissors. Copy, paste, replace, do it that way. You've got those 3 done. Then there's the ones to set up for the computer. So let's look at the first one. Computer chooses rock. So we just have if the string computer choice was rock and the computer won and the player lost, the player didn't win, that's all good. And here we're going to have it display in hot pink in the middle rather than in blue writing and get all that happening. And again, you just do the exact same, another if, end if, in that same subroutine we're working on at the moment for when it's paper and for when it's scissors. And then we need the tie game results. Now, in the tie game results, remember, we're not putting in a flashing animated GIF. So in this part here, it's all blank. All we need to do is change that winning, that message in the middle to say no winner. And we're doing that in yellow, in a yellow font, okay? So we're just setting all that up and displaying it. So you need that put in there for both of them chose rock. And notice how we do that. We do string computer choice is rock and string computer choice is rock. And then we need to do one for paper and one for scissors. So you'd have if string computer choice equals paper and player computer choice equals paper, well then it's a tie game, no winner. And you could also have another one underneath there that you did that said if string computer choice is scissors and player computer choice is scissors, it's a tie game, blah blah. So altogether there's going to be ifs and end ifs, and this big subroutine we're writing, the new one, will have 9 of them in it when you are finished. and then we're ready to call that subroutine. So again, we go down to the bottom of our button, click subroutines, and we've already added in the call for this one. Previously we added the call for that one. Now we're adding in the display game result call, and make sure you do that in all three of them, the BTN rock click, BTN paper click, BTN scissors click. So for all three player buttons, make sure you go down the very bottom before the end sub, put this line of code in so it will actually display the game result, and then we're ready to test it. So here we go. 2 rocks, tie game, no winner, in yellow font in that middle box, exactly like we wanted. Here we've got a flashing animated GIF here, going all different colors for the computer winning. And here we've got another flashing one because the computer won again. This time it was a tie game, they both picked paper. Oh, finally the player has a win. So we'd have the scissors flashing all sorts of colors. It says player wins in the middle. The computer one just stays as it is on paper. And here the computer one will be all flashing bright colors, and it'll say the computer wins. All right, so that's kind of getting it all fancy with animated GIFs. So if you're having trouble with this or anything's not working, remember, get the downloads where it's got the full code and fuller instructions that we're giving you here in the step-by-step instructions. So that's it. We've got animated GIFs now. We're looking a lot more professional, and we're up to updating and displaying those statistics. So we need to update the statistics. And then once we've done that, that's the end of lesson 3 in stage 3 of the program. So we're 75% of the way there, and we're 1 hour and 15 minutes into the video. All right, so we've got some public counters already set up. So remember right up the top of the program where we're doing all those public variables that any subroutine could use. So we've already got int number of player wins, so we can count the player wins and keep adding on to that number. We can count how many losses they've had, how many ties they've got. They're just integer numbers we can count with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And we set them to 0 at the start of the program because we haven't started the game and we've got no wins, ties, or losers yet. So don't add this code. That should already be right up the top of your program, right under the public class form 1 in that area before the form 1 loads subroutine. It should be already put up there ages and ages ago when we first started the video. And we're working on this bottom right-hand corner of the game now where we're going to have the player score here. And we want to add on put down 1 win if the players had a win. But if the computers actually had a win, we need to put 1 loss for the player here. So it's only about what the player's done. So when the computer wins, the player's lost, basically. And if there's been a tie game, we want to count that as well and have this go up to 1 for tie games, all right? So these things are called LBL player wins, is what that should have been named when you built the form way back at the start. The next one should have been called LBL player losses, and this one should have been called LBL ties. So we've got 3 text boxes for wins, losses, and ties, and we've got 3 integer numbers inside the program for actually counting wins, losses, and ties. And this is kind of important. These are number variables inside the actual program code. These are text, which is more like letters and sentences and alphabet. The alphabet things is text, which is here on the form. And there is a clash between numbers and text because the computer stores numbers as binary, as these 1010 things. And if you try and put them out onto a screen that's looking for text, it just says 101001, and it can't understand it. But luckily, VBNet comes to the rescue, and it's got this built-in function called CSTR. So if we've got a number inside a program that's stored all in binary muck that no one can understand, we just have to do an CSTR on it, and then it'll come out as this. Some sort of string value, which we can actually see on the screen. And we'll see that in the coding later on. But that's just an important computing concept to be aware of that happens in a lot of languages, that internally numbers are stored differently than we see them with our eyes. And we've got to use some sort of conversion to get them into visible, kind of normal, sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 type numbers that we can put on the screen and see, okay? So the best place to update these statistic variables is where we're doing the display game results. So I've already got this subroutine which is putting up the flashing animated GIFs. So if they've won and we've got rock flashing, well, that's the best place to add on another win for the player, okay? So it makes sense that we do it in that existing subroutine. So here it is, display game results already in there, and you've already got this code here. So up the top of that, straight under where if the player player choice is rock and the player's won and the computer's lost. Okay, that's what we're going to add. Int number of player wins is now what it used to be plus an extra one. Okay, so this is how you increase the number of player wins by 1, because they've just had a win here according to this code that's done the checking. And then we have to do that conversion to string. So we've got to take what the player wins are, the number value out of the program, convert it into a string so it can be placed on the form and actually seen by the human eye. So then we have lbl player wins.text equals cstr, what the program variable is. Okay, now you might not understand that today, but you're going to see that in a lot of programs where we need to do counting. So might be new stuff today. Just get it typed in exactly as it is in this particular point in that display game result, and then that should fix all that up. And then you'll also got later on in that same subroutine, it's got if the string computer choice is rock and the computer's won and the player didn't win, then we need to put the player losses. So if the computer's won, that means the player lost, basically. So add one onto the player losses, convert it into a string and put it out on the form so we can see it. And then we'll also need to be doing one for the tie games. So where there's 3 tie game sections in that display game result for ties, so if the computer choice is rock and player choice is rock, put this code in there to add one to the ties counter. If it's paper and paper, which is further down, put it in for that. And if it's scissors and scissors, put it into that one as well. So I think there's like 9 different things, remember, for what can happen in the game. And all 9 of those need to have some sort of counter updated for the situation that has occurred. And the form load subroutine also just needs some extra code in it added to the start of it here. To set those text boxes that are on the form, the labels, set them to 0 in quotes, okay, as well. So add that to the form 1 load subroutine. Then we're ready to test. So here, player picked scissors, but the computer had a win. Oh, that means the player lost. So notice how losses has been set to 1 here. Here the player had a win with rock. So we add 1 on to win. So the player has now had 1 win. All right. And here it was a tie game, no winner. So it's added 1 on to ties. All right. So just get some scenarios happening where you're rerunning the game. If the computer wins, you should see losses go up to 1. If the player wins, you should see wins go down as 1. If there's a tie, you should see ties go down as 1. If you test and get those results, then that's all working. And stage 3 of development is complete. Okay, so we could be learning VBNet program development, the complete story in 1.5 hours. That's 3 lessons done. So look, if you haven't had a break yet, I'd really suggest you do before we do these last 2 things, which is going to be like lesson 4, essentially. Okay, so this is a big game to build, but the thing is you're learning a lot of things. Other games will be using the project resources library for images. Other games we're going to want to use animated GIFs. Other games we're going to have a play again button, which we're going to do now in the next section. And you're going to want WAV file sound effects as well. You're going to want to know how to write pseudocode to work out some logic, and then how to translate that pseudocode into the particular computer language you're working with. So these are all essential skills. So even though it's a lot of learning in this lesson, 4 lessons in 1, it's well worth it for future lessons, because these are all skills you are definitely going to use again in later lessons. And if you've been doing our course from the start, you already start to see, oh yeah, we're doing the same sort of stuff we did in that other program. And oh yeah, back in the first program, we learned about the bin debug folder, and oh, here it is again in this one. So, you know, all the stuff's going to all start to come together eventually. All right, so let's get it coming together for the 4th and final lesson, the 4th stage of building this epic, world's best rock, paper, scissors VBNet game ever with flashing GIFs, and now we're going to have sounds too late. It's pretty soon. So let's get on. So look, the easiest way to code the exit button, where they click exit, is they just want to finish the game and don't want to play anymore. You can just put an end in there, and I think that's how we've been doing it in our course so far. And you just double click the button on the form and you just put END, the capital E in there, and bang, that's all done and working. We've done that in previous lessons. However, let's up it a bit. We're really trying to be professional on this project to make it the best one we possibly can, because we should always try and be our best. That's essential. So following the exit button, this is a more professional type exit button, which we'll start to use now in our projects, because once we've done it once, we can just copy and paste this button into of other projects. So you double click your exit button, but this time we type this code in. And what this code does is it builds a special message box with certain things in it. So it's not like an MSG box command where just the generic box types up. This box is actually going to say exit and close up the top, because see in this part here after the comma, we said exit and close. So that's what comes up here. We could have said this exit and quit if we wanted to, QUIT, and then up the top here it'd say exit and quit. So that's that. And this, are you sure you want to exit? That question there is what comes up here on the information. Are you sure you want to exit? And we said we want to have a yes, no type buttons, because I think you can have OK and cancel buttons as well if you put .OK cancel there, but we're saying we want the message box buttons to say yes, no, and we want the little icon to be the I icon. Now, if they click yes, that yes button, it's going to close down the form, which will finish off the project. So it just closes the form and the game's over and everything's done. But if they don't click that, we'll just say exit this subroutine and don't do anything. So if they click no, what'll happen is nothing will happen and they'll still be in the game on the main form screen. But if they click yes, the whole form will close down and disappear and the game's over. So that's a more professional way of doing it. That's the way to do it for this project. Double click the exit button and type that in and get it working with that little pop-up button. So the next bits, oh, this is a bit of a surprise. They're going to be challenge tasks. So making the play again button is a challenge task, but don't panic because we're going to guide you through it and pretty much show you most of how to do it anyway. But play again buttons will be important for every project we do. So make sure you pay attention to here to how we worked out what we needed to do for a play again button, because there's basically three things you need to look at to make a play again button. You need to look at, okay, what was I doing in my Form 1 load to start up this game screen? Because I need to do all those things again to start it up to make it look just like it did at the start. What public variables, global variables were I setting right up the top of my program? Because I need to set them back all to what they would have been at the very start of the program. So it's Form 1 load subroutine, public variables right up the top. And the other thing is what buttons are active at the moment on the form that I need to, or which buttons, sorry, the other way around, which buttons have I made disabled, which buttons are sitting there enabled false, and maybe I need to put them back to enabled true so that people can actually click them. So there's three things you need to look at. And so double click the play again button. VBNet will generate the good old button click subroutine sort of start and finish for us, and we've got to fill in all this stuff in between. Now, what do you fill it in with? Like we said, you need to look at the top of the program and the variables and the Form 1 load subroutine. So at the top of the variables, we were setting player choices, no choice yet, computer choice, no choice yet, and no one's won yet, okay? So you don't do this public stuff again, you only do parts of it. So we need to set str player choice, we need to write code str player choice equals no choice yet, str computer choice equals no choice yet. All this stuff in pink is what you need to write. It's 4 lines of code. They're the first 4 lines of code which go in this subroutine just to set all those public variables back to their original start values. Then we look at the Form 1 load subroutine. Now, what did we do in that subroutine? It's been so long, forgotten myself. We set up the pick player image was this one with the 3 symbols, the hand symbols, and we set up the computer image was the pink framed one with their one. So we're going to have to just copy and paste this code, all of this code here, which was setting up our start screen, just copy and paste all that and put it in here in this BTM play again subroutine, and then we've got most of our play again button done. All right, so once we do that, we can test it out. But when we test it, what happens is that you do the play again button, but you'll find that you can't actually, it'll reset the screen and you'll see those starting pictures okay and everything, but you won't be able to click the paper, scissors or rock buttons, because remember we were setting them all to enabled equals false because we only wanted them to click them once and make one choice. So I've actually got to set all those back to enabled equals true. So that's the third thing when you're looking for what you need to do to reset or play again, is what buttons are sitting out there that are false for their enabling at the moment, and do you need to set them back to true? So that's actually how that code should look so far. Down this very bottom pit, the last thing we need to worry about is a button. So you need to say BTM rock enabled equals true, BTM paper enabled equals true, BTM scissors enabled equals true. Put those 3 lines of code down here. Then we should have code that will totally reset our game and set us up so we can play again. So the thing was, though, we weren't resetting the statistics. That's important. All right, so make sure that you thoroughly test the play again button. So here we are. We've been playing again for a few games, and this one here's got a tie game. So notice a couple of things. We played a few games here, and we had some losses, we had some ties, we had some wins. So as that play again button coding, don't reset these counters. We want to keep the counters going as we keep playing again, just to see how things are going for us. And here we are seeing variations like, okay, we're down a bit, the computer's beating us because we've had 3 losses and only 2 wins. But you can see that it is varying. It is spreading out between the 3 possibilities. So that looks like our random number processing. Everything's working just like it would in the real world. So we've got ourselves a real world game with flashing GIFs and a play again button and statistics. You know, like other VBNet games won't give you any of this stuff. And the last thing we need to do is our WAV files. So we've done all of that stuff. Oh, that's taken a long time. And now we're just adding the WAV file sound effects on. So let's see here. So this is going to be the second challenge task for you. So you need to create a free sound account. So go to freesound.org. That's the best website we've found for these sound effect files that are free. Premiumbeat.com has great kind of files, but you have to pay for those. Like we've used them on some photo projects. But no, just go to freesound.org, sign up. They don't spam you with junk mail or anything. We've been signed up to them for about, I don't know, 6 months, nearly a year maybe now, and it's all good. They just supply sounds to use in creative projects with the Creative Commons license, so you're able to use them without problems. So when you see on these things. So what you can do is you can search for sound. So we'll take some of the hard work out of it for you. But look, we create the free account, sign in, and then we just type in the search box, and we wanted success sounds and stuff like this. And these are the things we found. They're the ones where you're using the funky music, the computer music, and the dun 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 dun, which is this one here, cartoon voices, cartoon disappointment. We just typed in disappointment for the view. They're the 3 ones we found that were the best, and we've also improved them a bit, which you're allowed to do under the Creative Commons license using Audacity. So one of them was an MP3 file, which you can't use in VBNet. It has to be a WAV file. So you can easily take it into Audacity, which is a free program. So you need to download Audacity and get that for free, and open it up and open up your MP3 file in there that you downloaded from Freesound. Then just go File, Export, and export it as a WAV, and you get a WAV version of the file which you can use in your project. Oftentimes you want to edit these in Audacity too, which is very simple. Like, see the ending of this is really long, where it goes quiet, so you can chop that off in Audacity and resave the file and export it. So you want to do things like that. Sometimes they have a quiet bit at the front before they start. We want them to start straight away, so you can chop that off the front and edit it. We show all of that, how to do that, in the download step-by-step guide. So this is the best download value ever. You are getting 4 lessons, right? 4 lessons worth of stuff, step-by-step instructions, and useful material you can use in other game projects. You're going to learn how to use Audacity, and you're going to learn how to make flashing GIFs in Photoshop. You're getting 6 lessons here for the price of 1. So look, you're not going to find value any better than that on the internet. Now, once you've got your WAV files, you do have to copy them into the bin debug folder. Now, if you're going, oh, bin debug folder, what's that? That's because you've totally forgotten everything we did in the jumping button project, or you haven't done it. So you need to go back to the jumping button project, just look in the video timeline index, find where we're talking about the debug folder. This is something of what it would look like. You have to burrow into your program through the folders, and that will be where your exe file is, and that's where you need to copy the WAV files as well, so that VBNet can find them. And to make a WAV file play, as we learned in Talkie Alarm Clock, which is something you should have done already, you just do mycomputer.audio.play brackets and the name of the file, and this time you do have to put the .wav on the end. Remember with the pictures when we loaded up the resources, we didn't need the .jpg. Here you do need the .wav, and it has to be a WAV file. So if you've got an MP3, use Audacity to turn it into WAV. Now, the trouble is that game will keep that sound will keep playing till it's finished, and you might want to click the play again button and have it go all quiet so you can play another game. So in the play again button, you will have to add some code, mycomputer.audio.stop brackets, which will, if any game winner sound is still playing, that's just going to stop it playing, okay? So you'll need that, and that will stop your WAV file. So you need those 2 bits of code. If this isn't working, you're not sure, you have trouble with this challenge task, remember it is all in the step-by-step guide in the download. So that's it. We have actually finished 4 lessons of work here, and it's taken us about an hour and a half to do. Now, was doing this whole hour and a half of learning and using VBNet for it a total waste of time? Why didn't you do it in Python? Why didn't you do it in JavaScript? Well, the great thing about doing VBNet is, the bad thing is we can't put this on the internet or in a store and try and sell it to anyone and make any money, because it won't work on a mobile device unless it happens to be a Windows device. But the thing is, we have a fully working prototype. So we've got a game screen design, we have a color scheme, we've got a layout, we have got animated GIFs and pictures that we have made ourselves, so we don't have to worry about copyright or royalties, paying anyone else. We have got some free WAV files to use. We've got the graphic design of the form worked out. We've got the logic of what we want to happen when people click different buttons and do different things. We've got here statistics and how we want them to be updated. We've got pseudocode and design documents for all of that set up. So what that means is that we can easily just send this to Airtask or somewhere overseas, really cheap to get developed, okay? So all we need to do is just find some contract programmer that does Android or does iOS, Apple, or does JavaScript, because we want it to play on a website. They can play this on a website or something. And it's a really cheap price, and it'll save us weeks of time of trying to develop this ourselves in JavaScript, do all that testing we saw, do all the agile development of the steps that you saw in this. It saves us all that time, because time is money. And our time is worth a lot more per hour than someone in the Philippines or Romania or India coding this up really cheap for us, okay? So it's like getting a magazine article. We just write it in English, and it's very cheap to get someone to put it into German or French. Actually, you get Google Translate to put it into French, and then you get a French-speaking person actually tidy it up a bit where Google didn't quite get it right. And then it's super, super cheap. So that's how you do it. You don't try and develop them yourselves in complicated environments and languages that need a lot of skills and experience. We can design it here and get someone else to build it cheap. So that's the way it's done. That's the way the most application software is done. Western countries are developing, designing products, and they're doing the marketing and sales, but they're getting some startup in Malaysia or in the Philippines to actually, or just one contract program or one person, really cheap, where they can talk to them on Skype and see how they're going and check in with them and make sure that the person just isn't sitting on the beach spending them money you've sent them, the Western money that goes a long way in their country. All right, you can check in with them and see how it's going, and they can show you things and they can ask you questions, all done by Skype. So that's the state of play. That's how things are done in the real world. So we're just prototyping, we're designing, we're the guys who are going to make all the money out of it when it sells on Android or iOS. We've paid that startup and developer, and they're completely out of the picture. We own everything, so that's how it all works, and that's the way we do it, guys. So the Fun and Games course, remember, Passy World of ICT VB Games. Now, when will the next video be out for this course? I'm not really sure, because this took a long time to do, and we've done, with the bonus lessons, around 6 lessons in one here, and we still haven't finished all the resources, so don't expect the downloads link to be working for another week or so for the video. So we've given you 6 lessons, guys, really, in VBNet. So there won't be another VBNet one for a while, because I think we're going to do some Python lessons, because we're developing a Python course at the same time. Let's not talk about Python in VBNet land. And so have fun programming with VBNet, because we're talking about VBNet, and give this video a big thumbs up because it hasn't killed you, because you should have watched it like as 4 separate lessons, not have gone on for over an hour and a half like I have. Give it a big thumbs up, and remember to subscribe to us on YouTube. Then you'll get video updates. So when that next VBNet one does come out, you'll see the notify there and know that it's there and ready to watch. So subscribe to us, follow us, like us, do all those right things, and we'll see you in the next lesson.